"You're not like us, Mom. You're poor." The words hung in the air like smoke. I looked up from my plate at the crowded dinner table. All those well-dressed people, crystal wine glasses catching the candlelight, expensive perfume mixing with the smell of truffle risotto. And there was my son, Ethan, 38 years old, standing at the head of the table with that confident smile I used to be so proud of. The room went quiet. Someone's fork clinked against china. A woman, I think it was Claire's friend Jennifer, let out a nervous laugh. "Ethan." His wife Claire whispered, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. I sat there in my navy cardigan, the one I'd worn to parent-teacher conferences for 20 years, and felt every eye in that restaurant turn toward me. My hands were folded in my lap, the way I'd taught Ethan to sit when he was 5 years old. Polite, respectful, dignified. Before I tell you what happened next, don't forget to subscribe if you love true stories like this, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if this happened to you? See, this wasn't just any dinner party. This was Ethan's celebration. He'd just made junior partner at some prestigious law firm in Manhattan. Claire had insisted on this place. Marcello's, where appetizers cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. I'd driven 3 hours to be there. Took the bus actually because my old Honda had been making that clicking sound again, and I didn't want to risk breaking down on the highway. "Mom lives simply," Ethan continued, his voice carrying that practiced courtroom confidence. "She's never understood the importance of presentation, of networking, of being seen with the right people." Claire nodded, sipping her wine. $200 a bottle, I'd seen the menu. A man across the table, Harrison I think, raised his glass. "To humble beginnings," he announced, and several people laughed. Actually laughed. I stood up slowly. My knees hurt, they always did after sitting too long, but I kept my back straight. 35 years of shelving books teaches you good posture. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I need to use the restroom." Nobody tried to stop me. "Let me take you back, way back, to a 2-bedroom apartment in Riverside, where the pipes clanged in winter and the air conditioner died every July. That's where I raised Ethan. Just me and him. His father left when Ethan was 2. Didn't leave a note, didn't leave money, just left. Moved to California with a woman from his office, and I never heard from him again. No child support. No birthday cards. Nothing. I was 29 years old, working as a library assistant, making barely enough to cover rent and daycare. But I made it work. I always made it work. Every morning I'd wake Ethan up at 6. We'd have breakfast together, usually oatmeal with whatever fruit was on sale, and I'd read to him while he ate. Dr. Seuss when he was little. Harry Potter when he got older. I wanted him to love stories, to understand that the richest worlds exist in our imaginations. By the time he was 7, Ethan was reading at a 5th grade level. The teachers said he was gifted. I said he just had a mother who believed in him. I worked at the Riverside Public Library for 32 years. Started as an assistant, eventually became the children's librarian. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't pay well. But every afternoon kids would come in after school, and I'd help them with homework, recommend books, teach them how to research projects. Some of those kids didn't have much at home. Neither did we. But we had stories. We had warm blankets on cold nights. We had each other. I taught Ethan to be kind, to hold doors for people, to say please and thank you, to notice when someone needed help and to offer it without being asked. When he was 12, our neighbor Mrs. Chen fell and broke her hip. Ethan spent 3 weeks mowing her lawn and walking her dog without expecting anything in return. I was so proud I cried. Money was always tight. I bought my clothes at thrift stores. We ate a lot of pasta and rice. Christmas presents came from clearance sales in January, wrapped in newspaper comics because wrapping paper felt wasteful. But Ethan never went hungry. He always had clean clothes. He never missed a field trip because I couldn't afford it, even if it meant I skipped lunch for a week to save up the $15. I put him through college. State school, not Ivy League, but still, I worked overtime, took extra shifts at the library, even cleaned houses on weekends. Whatever it took. When he graduated, summa cum laude, I was sitting in those bleachers with tears streaming down my face. Done it. We done it. He hugged me that day. Lifted me right off the ground. I couldn't have done this without you, Mom, he whispered. Long pause. That was 15 years ago. Law school changed him. Or maybe it was New York. Or maybe it was Claire. I'm not sure when exactly it happened. It wasn't overnight. It was gradual, like watching a photograph fade in the sun. He got into Columbia Law. Full scholarship, thank God, because I'd already emptied my savings for undergrad. He moved to Manhattan, and suddenly the phone calls became less frequent. I'm studying, Mom. I'll call you back. It's finals week, Mom. Can we talk later? I'm at a networking event, Mom. I'll try to visit next month. Next month became next season. Next season became next year. Understood. I really did. Law school is demanding. I didn't want to be the needy mother who didn't respect her son's ambitions. So I waited. I sent care packages, homemade cookies, warm socks, handwritten notes. He never acknowledged receiving them, but I kept sending them anyway. He met Claire during his second year. She came from money. Real money. Her father owned some tech company. Her mother sat on charity boards. They had a summer house in the Hamptons. The first time Ethan brought her home to meet me, I could see her taking in our small apartment with barely concealed disappointment. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. This is cozy, she said, the way people say interesting when they mean awful. I made my special lasagna, the one Ethan used to beg for every birthday. Claire ate 3 bites and claimed she was watching her carbs. After dinner, I overheard them in Ethan's old bedroom. Does she always dress like that? Claire asked. She's practical, Ethan replied. But he sounded defensive. Embarrassed. Well, when we get married, we'll need to manage expectations. About how involved she'll be. I mean, my parents are going to pay for the wedding, and they have certain standards. Ethan didn't defend me. He just said, I understand. They got married at a vineyard in Napa Valley. The invitation came 4 months before the wedding, but it was clear I was an afterthought. My name was misspelled on the envelope. The wedding cost more than I'd earned in 2 years. I bought a dress at Marshall's, navy blue, simple, appropriate, and I flew out there alone, sat in the back row, and watched my son promise his life to a woman who'd never once asked me about mine. At the reception, I was seated at a table with distant cousins I'd never met. Claire's family and friends filled the front tables, laughing and toasting with champagne that probably cost more per bottle than my monthly electric bill. Ethan made a speech. He thanked Claire's parents for their generosity and guidance. He thanked his law professors. He thanked his fraternity brothers. He didn't mention me once. After the wedding, the distance became a canyon. They bought a brownstone in Brooklyn. Ethan sent me photos. Granite countertops, exposed brick, a garden patio. We're really settling in, he wrote in a text. Hope you're well. Hope you're well. Like I was an acquaintance. A former co-worker. I invited them for Christmas. We're doing Aspen with Claire's family, he replied. Maybe next year. Next year came. We're doing Paris this year. Claire's parents have a flat there. I stopped inviting. Meanwhile, my life continued in its quiet way. I retired from the library at 65. They threw me a small party. Cake from the grocery store bakery. Handmade cards from the kids I'd helped over the years. It was simple. It was beautiful. What will you do now, Miss Helen? One little girl asked me. Keep busy, I told her. Keep helping. And I did. I started volunteering at the community center. We ran a free library out of the basement, Anyone could take books, no questions asked. I taught adult literacy classes on Tuesday evenings. On Thursdays, I helped serve lunch at the community pantry. My neighbor Maya recruited me. She was 72, a retired nurse, and the most energetic person I'd ever met. She'd started the pantry 15 years earlier after her husband died. Said she needed something to live for beyond her own grief. "We need more hands," she told me. "And you've got the kindest hands I've ever seen." So I went. And I kept going. Every Thursday 9 to 3, I'd stand behind that folding table and serve soup, hand out bread, pack grocery bags for families who were struggling to make ends meet. I recognized the look in their eyes. The shame mixed with gratitude. The careful dignity of people who'd never expected to need help. Been there. Maybe not at a food pantry, but I'd been there. Counting pennies, choosing between paying the heating bill or buying Ethan new shoes. "Thank you," they'd whisper, taking the bag. "You're welcome," I'd say. We all need help sometimes. That's what community is for. Ethan didn't know about any of this. He never asked how I spent my time. When we did talk, maybe once every 3 months, the conversations were surface level. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine." "How's work?" "Busy. Really busy. I might make junior partner soon." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Silence. The kind that feels like an ocean. "Well, I should go. Claire and I have dinner reservations." "Of course. I love you." "Yeah. You too." You too." Not, "I love you, Mom." Not, "I miss you." Yeah. So when the invitation came, an actual paper invitation, cream-colored cardstock with embossed lettering, I was shocked. Ethan Mercer celebrates his promotion to junior partner. Join US for dinner at Marcello's. There was a handwritten note at the bottom in Claire's perfect cursive. "It would mean so much if you could attend. Ethan specifically requested you be there." He specifically requested me. I read that line maybe 20 times. I held that invitation against my chest and let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I was getting my son back. Called him immediately. "Ethan. Got the invitation. I'm so proud of you." "Oh, thanks, Mom." He sounded distracted. I could hear Claire's voice in the background, saying something about seating arrangements. "I'll be there," I said. "I wouldn't miss it." "Great. It's kind of a formal thing. So maybe." "Dress nice." "Dress nice." As if I wouldn't. As if I'd show up in sweatpants and embarrass him. "Of course," I said quietly. "Okay. Well, I've got a conference call. See you Saturday." He hung up before I could say "I love you." I spent the next week trying to figure out what to wear. Everything in my closet suddenly felt inadequate. Too old. Too cheap. Finally, I settled on a navy cardigan over a cream blouse and my one pair of good slacks. It was simple, but it was clean and appropriate. I wasn't trying to pretend to be something I wasn't. Maya drove me to the bus station that Saturday morning. "You look lovely," she said, squeezing my hand. "He's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have him," I replied automatically. She gave me a look, the kind that said she knew better, but she didn't argue. The bus ride was 3 hours. I brought a book but couldn't focus. I kept imagining the dinner. Maybe Ethan would stand up and toast me. Maybe he'd tell everyone about how I'd worked 2 jobs to put him through school. Maybe he'd finally acknowledge everything I'd sacrificed. Maybe he'd introduce me with pride instead of obligation. When I arrived at Marcello's, I almost turned around and went home. The restaurant was the kind of place where the hostess looks you up and down before deciding if you're worth seating. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. A wine list thicker than my Bible. "I'm here for the Mercer party," I told the hostess. She scanned her list, eyebrows raised. "Name? Helen Mercer. I'm Ethan's mother." "Oh." The single syllable carried a world of judgment. "Right this way." They'd seated me at the far end of the table. Not next to Ethan, not near Claire, but squeezed between two couples I didn't know, both of whom were already deep in conversation about their recent trip to Monaco. I sat down quietly, folded my hands in my lap, and waited. Ethan was at the head of the table, laughing at something Harrison, a colleague I gathered, had said. Claire was beside him, her diamond earrings catching the light every time she moved her head. He didn't acknowledge me at first. Not a wave, not a smile. Nothing. Finally, about 10 minutes after I'd arrived, he glanced down the table and gave a curt nod. "Mom, glad you made it." "I wouldn't have missed it," I said, trying to smile. The woman next to me, Jennifer, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension, looked at me with curiosity. "You're Ethan's mother." I had no idea. He never talks about his family. Of course he doesn't. "Yes," I said simply. "I raised him in Riverside." "Riverside?" She wrinkled her nose. "Is that upstate?" "It's a small town. A few hours from here." "Oh." She turned back to her husband, clearly done with the conversation. Dinner was served in courses. Each plate was a work of art. Tiny portions arranged with microgreens and drizzled with reductions I couldn't pronounce. I ate carefully, trying not to feel out of place. Around me the conversation flowed. Stock options, real estate investments, someone's yacht, a charity gala where tickets started at $5,000. I had nothing to contribute. I sat there in my navy cardigan, sipping water, feeling smaller with each passing minute. Then came the toast. Harrison stood first, glass raised. "To Ethan, the hardest working bastard I know. You earned this, man." Applause. Cheers. Claire stood next. "To my brilliant husband. You're everything I knew you'd become. I'm so proud to stand beside you as you climb even higher." More applause. Ethan kissed her hand. Then Claire's father stood. Richard, silver-haired and commanding. "Ethan, when you joined this family, I knew you had potential. You've proven me right. Here's to the next chapter, and to remembering where you came from so you know how far you've climbed." Where you came from. I felt my throat tighten. That's when Ethan stood. "Thank you, everyone. This wouldn't have been possible without all of you. Your support, your mentorship, your guidance." He went on, naming names, thanking colleagues and friends. Then his eyes drifted to me. "And of course," he said, and I sat up straighter, my heart lifting. "I have to acknowledge where I started. Humble beginnings and all that." Few people chuckled. My mother lives a very simple life. She worked at a library, raised me in a small apartment. She doesn't really understand this world. The networking, the clients, the appearances that matter. I felt my face grow hot. She's never quite grasped the importance of ambition, of building something bigger than yourself, of surrounding yourself with excellence. Claire was nodding. Other people were smiling, like this was inspirational, like he was giving some kind of rags to riches speech. "She lives modestly, drives an old car, shops at thrift stores. He paused, as if searching for the right word. "She's not like us. She's poor." The word hung in the air. Or, not frugal, not humble, not simple. Or, as if it was something shameful. As if 32 years of dedicated work meant nothing. As if raising him alone, sacrificing everything, meant nothing. Jennifer laughed. A nervous, social laugh. Others joined in, uncertain if this was a joke or a genuine assessment. Claire reached over and squeezed Ethan's hand, smiling up at him like he'd just said something profound. I stood up slowly. My legs felt shaky, but I kept my back straight. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I need to use the restroom." Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody asked if I was okay. I walked past the table, past the hostess, past the crystal chandeliers and the expensive art on the walls. And I walked right out the front door. I didn't go back inside. I stood on the sidewalk outside Marcello's, the city noise buzzing around me. Taxis honking, people laughing, the distant wail of a siren. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Mom? Where did you go?" I didn't respond. Walk. I'm not even sure where I was going. I just walked, my sensible shoes clicking on the pavement, my navy cardigan pulled tight against the evening chill. He'd called me poor. I thought about all those nights I'd stayed up late, sewing buttons back on his school shirts because new ones were too expensive. I thought about the times I'd told him we couldn't afford something. A video game, a class trip to Washington, D.C., and the way he'd nodded, understanding even as a child that we had to be careful. I thought about working 3 jobs the summer before his freshman year of college, coming home with aching feet and falling asleep on the couch before I could even eat dinner. I thought about the pride in his voice when he was 12, telling his friends, "My mom works at the library. She knows everything about books." When did I become something to be ashamed of? I found a bench near a small park and sat down. It was getting dark. I should probably find the bus station, figure out how to get home. My phone rang. Ethan. I didn't answer. It rang again. Blair. I turned it off. You know what's funny? In that moment, sitting on that bench in a city that didn't know me, I realized something. I wasn't poor. Not where it mattered. I had Maya, who checked on me every morning with fresh coffee. I had the kids at the community center who lit up when I walked in. I had Mrs. Chen from next door, who still sent me birthday cards with $5 bills tucked inside. Just in case. I had a community that needed me and appreciated me. I had books that had taught me empathy and courage. I had stories that had expanded my world beyond what any bank account could buy. I had clean hands and a clear conscience. Ethan had money. He had status. He had a brownstone and a wife with diamond earrings. But watching him stand there, mocking his own mother for applause from people who probably wouldn't remember his name in 5 years. He was the poor one. I didn't hear from Ethan for 3 weeks after that dinner. When he finally called, I was volunteering at the pantry, helping Maya organize donations. "Mom, we need to talk about what happened." "Do we?" I asked calmly. "You just left. You embarrassed me in front of my colleagues." I embarrassed him. "Ethan," I said carefully. "I need to go. I'm in the middle of something." "Mom." "Goodbye." Hung up. Maya raised her eyebrows but didn't comment. Life continued. The seasons changed. I kept busy with the pantry, the literacy classes, the free library. I took up watercolor painting on Wednesday afternoons. I joined a book club. I didn't spend my time waiting for my son to realize what he'd lost. Claire sent a Christmas card. Generic message, no personal note. I sent back a card with a $5 Starbucks gift card. The same small gesture Mrs. Chen always gave me. I didn't get a thank you. Then, one Thursday morning in March, Maya pulled me aside at the pantry. "Helen, we're getting more people lately. The economy's hitting folks hard. Lots of professionals who never thought they'd need help." "That's what we're here for," I said. She nodded. "Just wanted to prepare you. It's hard sometimes, seeing people you might recognize. Folks get embarrassed." I squeezed her hand. "We'll treat them with dignity. Same as everyone else." I didn't think anything of it. Not until the next Thursday, when I was packing grocery bags in the back room, and I heard a familiar voice in the main hall. I need some help. Temporary. Just until I get back on my feet." I froze, a can of soup in my hand. That voice. I'd know it anywhere. I'd sung lullabies in that voice's presence. I cheered at soccer games. I'd whispered good night for 18 years. I walked to the doorway and looked out. There he was. Ethan. He looked different. Thinner. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed. The confidence I'd seen at that dinner party was gone, replaced by something hollow. He was standing at the intake desk, filling out a form. His hands were shaking. Maya was helping him, her voice kind and professional. She didn't know who he was. Why would she? What brought you here today? Maya asked gently. Ethan cleared his throat. I lost my job 3 months ago. I'm trying to find something new, but it's taking longer than I thought. My wife. He paused. My ex-wife. Left. Took most of what we had. The apartment's gone. I'm staying with a friend, but I need help. I stood there in the doorway, watching my son admit to needing help from strangers. Maya glanced up and saw me. She didn't say anything, just gave me a subtle questioning look. I nodded slowly. It's okay. I'll handle this. I walked out into the main hall, carrying a grocery bag I'd just packed. Ethan. He looked up. For a moment, I saw the little boy I'd raised. The one who used to cry when he scraped his knees. The one who'd climb into my bed during thunderstorms. Then I saw the man who'd called me poor in front of a room full of strangers. Mom. His voice cracked. Hello, sweetheart. We sat at one of the plastic folding tables in the corner. I poured us both coffee from the big metal dispenser. It was cheap coffee, the kind I'd always bought at home. Ethan wrapped his hands around the paper cup like he was trying to warm himself, even though it was spring and reasonably comfortable inside. Mom, I didn't know you volunteered here. Why would you? Said simply. You never asked how I spent my time. I'm sorry, he whispered. About the dinner. About what I said. I was trying to impress them. By humiliating me. He flinched. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. My voice was gentle but firm. You meant every word. You were ashamed of me. Of where you came from. You thought you'd climbed above all that. His eyes filled with tears. I was an idiot. Yes, I agreed. You were. What happened, Ethan? He told me everything. How he'd gotten too confident, made a risky investment with a client's money. How it had fallen through spectacularly. How the firm had let him go quietly to avoid scandal, but word had gotten out anyway. How Claire had been furious. How she'd screamed that he'd embarrassed her family. How her father had made some calls, ensuring Ethan would have trouble finding work anywhere in Manhattan. How Claire had filed for divorce, taken the furniture, the savings, even his car. How he'd spent 3 months sending out resumes and getting nothing but rejection letters. I sold everything, he said. My watch, my suits, anything of value. I'm broke, Mom. Actually broke. And I finally understand what that word means. What do you want from me, Ethan? I asked quietly. I don't know. Forgiveness. Help. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I don't have anyone else. Part of me wanted to hold him. To tell him it would be okay, the way I had when he was little and the world felt too big and scary. But another part of me, the part that had sat in that restaurant and felt my heart break, that part needed him to understand. You measured life wrong, I said softly. I know. Do you? I leaned forward. Because it's not just about the money, Ethan. It's about what you valued. Who you valued. You surrounded yourself with people who cared more about what you owned than who you were. And when it all fell apart, where were they? Gone, he whispered. Gone, I echoed. But you know who's here. Me. The community center volunteers. The people you would have called poor 6 months ago. These are the people who show up. Who help. Who understand that we're all one bad month away from needing a hand. I've been where you are, Ethan. Not exactly, but close. Wondering how to pay rent. Choosing between groceries and gas. But I had people. I had community. Because I'd spent my life building something that mattered more than money. I know that now, he said. I'm sorry I didn't see it before. I sat there looking at my son, really looking at him, and I had a choice to make. I could turn him away. Tell him he'd made his bed and now had to lie in it. Send him back out into the world to learn his lessons the hard way. Or I could help him. Not because he deserved it, but because that's what mothers do. That's what community does. Stand up, I said. He looked confused but obeyed. I picked up the grocery bag I'd packed earlier. Canned goods, pasta, rice, peanut butter, bread. Basics. Take this, I said, handing it to him. Mom. Take it, Ethan. He took the bag, his eyes filling with tears again. This is how it works here, I continued. We help people. No judgment. No conditions. Just help. You're going to take this food, and you're going to be grateful for it, and you're going to remember this feeling. I will. I promise. I'm not finished. I crossed my arms. You're also going to start volunteering here. Every Thursday, 9 to 3. Maya can use an extra set of hands, and you can use the perspective. Okay. And you're going to apologize, not just to me but to yourself, for losing sight of what matters. I already have, Mom. Then prove it. Not with words. With actions. Show me, show everyone that you learned something from this. What if I can't fix this? What if I'm just stuck? Ethan, being stuck isn't about money. I've never had much money. But I've never been stuck. I've had purpose, community, love. Those things don't require a bank account. I reached out and touched his face, the way I used to when he was small. You're my son. I'll help you because that's what family does. But our relationship has changed. You broke something that day at that restaurant. And trust isn't free. Has to be rebuilt. Earned. I understand. Do you? I hope so, he said honestly. I really hope so. The next Thursday, Ethan showed up at the pantry at 8:45 in the morning. I was surprised. I'd half expected him not to come, to decide it was beneath him or too humbling. But there he was in jeans and an old t-shirt, looking nervous. Where do you want me? He asked. Maya looked at me, eyebrows raised. He nodded. Back room, Maya told him. We need those donation boxes sorted and shelved. For the next 6 hours, Ethan worked. He lifted boxes, stocked shelves, organized canned goods by category. His hands that had shuffled expensive legal documents and shaken hands with wealthy clients, were now dusty and tired. During lunch break, he sat with the other volunteers. They shared sandwiches and stories. Nobody asked him what he used to do. Nobody cared about his resume. They just asked his name and whether he wanted mustard or mayo. I watched him from across the room. Watched him actually listen when Mrs. Patterson talked about her grandson's baseball game. Watched him laugh, really laugh, at one of Miguel's terrible jokes. He looked lighter somehow. Like he'd put down something heavy he'd been carrying. The weeks turned into months. Ethan kept coming every Thursday. He also started attending my Tuesday literacy classes, helping adults who were learning to read. He was patient and kind, never condescending, never rushing them. One evening, a woman named Keisha successfully read an entire children's book out loud. When she finished, Ethan had tears in his eyes. That was amazing, he told her. Thank you for believing I could do it, she replied. After class, Ethan walked me to my car. Mom, he said quietly. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. For showing me this. He gestured around at the community center. Real life. Real people. Real wealth. I stopped walking and turned to face him. Ethan, I never gave up on you. But I did let you go. Had to. You were choosing a life I couldn't be part of. And I made peace with that. I don't want that life anymore. Good. But you can't do this for me. You have to do it for yourself. You have to believe it. I'm starting to, he said. I really am. Ethan eventually found work. Not at a prestigious law firm, but at a small non-profit that provided legal aid to low-income families. The pay was a fraction of what he'd made before, but he seemed genuinely happy. He moved into a modest apartment in Queens. 1 bedroom, no doorman, but it was clean and it was his. We started having dinner together once a month. Nothing fancy. Usually at my place where I'd make lasagna or pot roast, and we'd eat at my small kitchen table. The first time he came over, he looked around my apartment with different eyes. "It's cozy here," he said. "It always has been. I couldn't see it before." "You were looking at the wrong things," I replied. He smiled, a real smile, not that practiced corporate smile, and helped me set the table. We talked about his cases, about the families he was helping, about a single mother who was fighting an eviction, and how Ethan had found a loophole in her lease that saved her apartment. "You should have seen her face, Mom. She actually cried. She hugged me and said I was an angel." "You did good, sweetheart. It feels good. Feels real. More real than anything I did at that firm." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'm proud of you." His eyes filled with tears. "I spent 38 years wanting to hear you say that for the wrong reasons. I wanted you to be proud of my salary, my title, my success. But this feels different." "Because it is different," I said. "You're not performing anymore. You're living." "I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." "I know. But you see it now. That's what matters." About 8 months after Ethan started volunteering, Claire showed up at the community center. I was at the intake desk when she walked in. She looked exactly the same. Perfect hair, designer clothes, that practiced smile. "Helen," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "I heard Ethan volunteers here. I wanted to talk to him. He's in the back. I'll let him know you're here." I found Ethan organizing the food storage area. When I told him Claire was waiting, his face went pale. "What does she want?" "I don't know. But you don't have to talk to her if you don't want to." "No, I should. I need to." They talked outside. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I watched through the window. Claire was animated, gesturing with her hands. Ethan stood still, arms crossed, his face unreadable. The conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes. Then Claire reached for his hand. He pulled away. She said something else. I could see her lips moving quickly, urgently. And then she walked away, her heels clicking angrily on the pavement. Ethan came back inside. He looked shaken but steady. "You okay?" "Yes." "Yeah." She wanted to reconcile. Said her new boyfriend didn't work out. Said she missed me. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I wasn't that person anymore. The person she married was obsessed with money and status and impressing people. I'm not him anymore. And honestly, I don't think I ever really was him. I was just pretending. Trying to be what I thought success looked like." "Good for you." She didn't understand. She kept saying I was wasting my potential here. That I could get my career back if I just tried harder, networked better. "But this isn't a waste, Mom. This is the first time in years I've felt like I'm doing something that matters." I pulled him into a hug. He was taller than me, but in that moment he felt like my little boy again. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered. "I learned from the best," he whispered back. A year after that dinner party, a full year, Ethan asked if he could host Thanksgiving at his apartment. "It won't be fancy," he warned. "But I want to do it. I want to cook for you. For everyone." "Everyone?" "Yes. You, Maya, Mrs. Chen if she'll come, maybe some of the volunteers from the center. People who've actually been there for me. Real people." "I'd love that, sweetheart." Thanksgiving came. Ethan's small apartment was packed with people. Maya brought sweet potatoes. Mrs. Chen brought dumplings. Miguel brought his famous tres leches cake. Ethan cooked a turkey, his first one ever. And it was slightly dry, but nobody cared. We squeezed around his small table, chairs borrowed from neighbors, and we ate and laughed and told stories. At one point, Maya raised her glass of sparkling cider. I want to toast our newest volunteer, she said, smiling at Ethan. He showed up broken and humble, and he's become one of the hardest workers we have. More importantly, he's become family. Everyone raised their glasses. Ethan's eyes were wet. Thank you. All of you. A year ago, I had everything I thought I wanted and nothing that actually mattered. Now I have less money, a smaller apartment, and a used car that makes weird noises. Everyone laughed. But I'm happier than I've ever been. 'Cause I have this community, purpose, people who care about me for who I am, not what I have. He looked at me. And I have my mom back, who I never should have pushed away, who tried to teach me these lessons my whole life, but I was too stubborn to listen. I'm sorry it took me so long to see your wealth, Mom. You're the richest person I know. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, tears streaming down my face. Maya squeezed my hand under the table. To family, someone said. To second chances, another voice added. To Helen, Ethan said quietly, looking right at me. To my mom, the strongest, kindest, most patient person I've ever known. I'm sorry I couldn't see it before. I see it now. I love you, Mom. Not yeah, you too. Not a distracted, obligatory response. But real words. Real love. I love you too, sweetheart, I whispered. That was 2 years ago now. Ethan is still at the nonprofit. He's dating someone. A teacher named Rebecca who volunteers at the literacy center. She's kind and funny, and she doesn't care that his apartment is small or that his car is old. She cares that he's good. That he's kind. That he shows up. He still volunteers every Thursday. Sometimes we work side by side, packing bags, serving soup, listening to people's stories. Last month, a young man came in. Couldn't have been more than 25. He was wearing an expensive suit that was starting to look worn, and he had that same hollow look Ethan had 2 years ago. I lost my job, he said quietly. And I don't know what to do. Ethan looked at me. He nodded. Come sit down, Ethan told him. Let's get you some food. Then we'll talk. And I watched my son, my beautiful once lost son, help someone else find their way. You know, people ask me sometimes if I regret how I raised Ethan. If I wish I'd had more money, given him more advantages, prepared him better for the real world. And I tell them the truth. I don't regret a single moment. I raised him the best way I knew how. With love. With books. With kindness. With the understanding that we take care of each other. He lost his way for a while. Got dazzled by shiny things and forgot what actually glimmers. But the foundation was there. The lessons were there. Sometimes people need to fall before they remember how to stand. Real wealth isn't in a bank account. It's not in a brownstone or a designer suit or a table at an expensive restaurant. Real wealth is in the people who show up when you're broken. It's in the community that catches you when you fall. It's in the purpose that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's in knowing that you've lived a life that helped people. That made the world a little bit softer, a little bit kinder. Ethan called me poor. And maybe by his definition I was. But by mine. By the measure that actually matters. I've always been rich. I just needed him to see it too. And now, finally, he does. That dinner party was the worst night of my life. But it was also the beginning of getting my son back. Not the son who wanted to impress strangers. But the son I raised. Kind one. The good one. He was there all along, buried under ambition and insecurity. And now he's home. Not in my apartment, not in my life every day. But home in himself. And that's the only place that matters. So if you're listening to this and wondering what the lesson is, I'll tell you. Money comes and goes. Jobs come and goes. Status is temporary and fragile. But the way you treat people, that's permanent. That's what people remember. If you're a parent, love your kids. But don't let them confuse success with wealth. Teach them that helping matters more than having. If you're someone who's lost their way, chasing things that don't feed your soul, it's not too late. You can turn around. You can find your way back. And if you're someone like me, someone who's been dismissed, overlooked, called poor or simple, remember this. You know your worth. You don't need anyone else's permission to be proud of your life. The people who matter will see you. And the people who don't, they're not your people. Ethan called me poor at a dinner party. But he couldn't see my wealth. Now he can. And that's worth more than any bank account ever could be. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you what actually matters in this life. We're all just here for a little while. Make it count. Be kind. Show up for people. That's real wealth. That's everything. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more stories about truth, family, and what really matters in life. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better? How did you handle it? Thank you for being here. Take care of each other.